All right, all right. Well, welcome in, beautiful people. Happy Wednesday, happy Valentine's Day to all who celebrate. And if you find yourself struggling with today and all that it holds, know that we here at A Call to Men, we see you, we love you, and we're sending good vibes and all of that goodness your way. We are also incredibly excited that you are choosing to join us here for the next hour for our community conversation. This is one that I'm really, really looking forward to. I look forward to them all, but I'm also really excited about our partnership with Match Group and this conversation that we're going to have today around dating apps and healthy masculinity, healthy relationships, all of that good stuff. It's going to be a really, really full hour. As you're coming in here to the Zoom, you'll notice a couple of things. One, everyone is muted, and we do that with intention because we want to make sure that everyone can hear and see our amazing panelists as we're moving through our time together today. But we also want to make sure that we have time to bring your voices into the conversation. So get into that chat box there if you're here on Zoom, or if you're joining us over on Facebook on the live stream. Get in there, let us know your name and where you're joining us from. And as we move through our conversation, if there's a quote that jumps out to you, pop that in the chat. If there's a question that you have or something that you want our panelists to expound upon, drop that in the chat as well. We'll have time towards the end of our hour for some Q&A where we're going to elevate those questions. So again, whether you're here on Zoom or you're joining us on Facebook, get in the chat, make that house your home, as we say. We want to make sure that we bring your voices in. You also notice that we have some ASL interpreters here. We have two interpreters with us today. They will always be pinned on the screen so that everyone has access to their amazing service here. So come into the room. If you've got your lunch, eat your lunch, relax, do what you need to do, take care of yourself. And again, we're really, really honored and excited that you're here with us for the next hour. So with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ted Bunch, who is our Chief Development Officer here at A Call to Men. And Ted is going to be the weaver of our conversation today. So Ted, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Hello, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day, happy Love Day. We really appreciate you all joining us today. Hope that everyone and your families are safe and well. So we have a wonderful conversation planned for you today, and we'll be discussing many aspects of online dating. And we're fortunate to have some wonderful folks with very diverse experiences on our panel, and I'll be introducing them to you shortly. I would also like just to begin the conversation by providing just a little bit of context to the topic and the work of A Call to Men. When we look at dating for male-identified people online or even in person, we also need to examine the culture that exists for our young men and men. Unfortunately, our boys and young men are often taught less about respect, value, and boundaries in a relationship and more about control and conquest. In the collective socialization of manhood, or the man box, as we call it here at A Call to Men, we coined that term more than 20 years ago, the man box. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, if not all of you. And the man box teaches us many things, and just to name a few, that as men, young men, and then we pass this down to our boys, to not ask for help, for example, to not be vulnerable, to not show weakness, to be dominant and in control, especially over women and girls in our life. It teaches us that women and girls have less value than men and boys, that women are the property of men, and that women and girls are sexual objects. We as men too often bring these attitudes and beliefs online as well. I was thinking about, we just had a big football game on Sunday, right? The Super Bowl. And I was thinking about this conversation. I was also thinking about, we could have a group of young men who, let's say, are on a college football team who lose a game. And if one of them's crying, they wouldn't be laughed at, they'd be supported. But if one of them's crying about loss of a relationship, they wouldn't get the same kind of support. They might be ridiculed more. All of those things, those are the things that are taught in the man box. And those are the things we want to interrupt. The man box also impacts mental health. When that little boy shares about being hurt or sad or disappointed, in our society, we too often ask him to repress that or demand that of him by saying, suck it up, move on, I don't want to hear all that, man up, all of those other things. So it also teaches men to kind of suffer in silence, because we've learned that as boys, or to express those feelings. They show up um, in some form of anger towards self or even toward others. So mental health and the connection, weaving those things together, is really important as we look at the wholeness of men as relate to dating and just in the lives of men and boys. So today we're talking about finding love in the time of swiping and navigating online dating. We'll also be discussing how folks handle digital rejection and in-person interactions as well. And I'd like to introduce you to some incredible people who'll be sharing with us today their unique dating experiences. I'll introduce them to you, and then I'll pose a question to them. Actually, I'll introduce them to you and ask each of them to share just a little bit about themselves. Let's go to De-Andrea Blaylock-Solar. De-Andrea, would you say hello and just share a little bit about yourself with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm joining you from St. Louis and so very happy to be here. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and certified sex therapist in the St. Louis area, where I provide therapy to individuals and those in all types of relationships. One of my taglines is that I help folks dismantle bad theology so they can have good sex. So holding space for people to kind of dismantle negative beliefs, but still keep a connection to their faith. That's one of my specialties. One thing that I was thinking about is how I'm a Tinder success story. When I decided to start dating, I'm a remarried widow. I decided to start with online dating, and here we are a few years later and got married. So I do have some experience with that online dating space and very happy to be here to participate in this conversation.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Rock Lash, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ted. De-Andrea, that was beautiful. I love how you said that, the dismantling piece. My name is Rock Lash. I'm the director of programs with the Call to Men. I'm joining from Matthews, North Carolina. I've been having really interesting conversations over the past 5 years, particularly with college students, about what are some things that we as young men can do to prevent violence within these online dating spaces? And as a user of different apps myself, I'm really looking forward to spending time with folks today and having this conversation.
Thank you, Rock. And I'm going to ask Brian Stromer if you'd introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. So my name is Brian Stromer. I'm a MBA student at Harvard Business School, but for that, my work really focused on helping technology companies understand how do they include people with disabilities and how do they build messaging and marketing around that. So I think for today's topic, it's so exciting to have this conversation. And as a person with a disability, think about the ways that dating apps have both been, inclusive for me, but also the ways there are opportunities to think about how do we kind of further this narrative and bring more people with disabilities into the dating space. So really excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Brian. And I'm going to ask Brian O'Dowd if you would do the same, please.
Sure. Thanks, Ted. Hi, I'm Brian O'Dowd. I work with Match Group. I'm in the member services department. I'm a product manager, but the products I manage are not actually the apps that our members are using. I manage internal tooling that is used by our member services department. And so that's been really interesting because I'm working very closely with people who are directly working with our members and trying to resolve issues that they're running into, sometimes technical and sometimes not. So it's been a very interesting road. Also very excited to participate in this conversation as a person who is using a lot of these apps to date, specifically men. It's been, a very interesting experience for myself, and so I'm excited to talk about it today.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for representing Match Group. And I want to just give a nice shout out to our family and friends at Match Group. We have Tasha and Fidel on the line, our great partners at Match Group. We were really excited about this partnership that developed about a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, which was really an exciting opportunity for a call to men, because we really believe that impacting culture with culture is the way to really move the needle, to really transform people's lives. And our partnership with Match Group has really been amazing. And we look forward to continuing to work together with Match Group. So I'm going to go to our first question, and I'm going to just let folks know that when I refer to both of the Brians, I'll just refer to Brian O and Brian S, so you all don't get confused of who I'm asking the question to. So this question is for everyone, but I'm going to start by asking Rock to answer it first. So how do dating apps and online platforms influenced by societal norms and cultural expectations, in your view, impact the way people handle rejection in digital dating compared to in-person interactions? I know it's a big question, Rock, but if you could.
That's a big question. That's a big question. So I think it's important to note, for me, I see a lot of similarities with the in-person and the digital today. And I think the two are actually beginning to inform each other in unique ways. But in my experience, being in that online space, it feels like there's a bigger gap between me and this person or these persons that I'm trying to connect with. And when I think about the app itself, the app is kind of like a liaison, right? Trying to facilitate that connection. And our profiles are like these personal assistants. I can go to work, I can go to the gym, I can go to the grocery store, and my personal assistant, my profile is still working for me during that time, right? And I come back and I see, a lot of things have happened in there. But I think that gap between me and these persons, there's a lot that can happen within that space, right? And it can begin to feel transactional in ways that, maybe aren't intended to feel transactional, because, I can't see your physical reaction or your physical response, right? I can't see your body language. I can't hear your verbal cues as you're looking at, my like that I may have sent to you and figuring out, am I going to engage with that? Am I not going to engage with that? Am I going to send a like? So it kind of can feel in this really transactional way. And I think anytime, whether it's in person or digital, that we choose to be vulnerable and we choose to send that like, we choose to, put ourselves out there, it can be chanceful. It's like sending something into the vastness, right? And just hoping for the best. Online, that can feel a little bit bigger. That can feel a little bit deeper within that vastness. And I think all of that culminates, and even going back to Ted, what you started with, that man box, I think all of these things culminate to influence how men in particular, right, handle rejection, deal with rejection, internalize rejection, and respond to that rejection.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm going to ask Brian, if you don't mind lending your voice here. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that like the culture has obviously shifted after dating apps came into the game, right? Like it's completely impacted how we interact with each other and how we, search for those kind of connections. But I think in terms of like looking at how we handle rejection in person versus how we handle it online, I mean, it's the age old, like people are a lot more, they have an easier time just responding any way that they feel like they want to respond in that moment when they're online versus in person. So I think when you're faced with somebody who's standing right in front of you, you're a lot more apt to maybe handle those interactions a bit more positively, or put more of a positive spin on it. And then you run into a lot of people in the online dating space, or just online in general, who are very quick to get negative. And that's something unfortunate that has come out of it. I think that, one of the things I would love to see is just sort of changing that culture as much as we can, and like putting that energy out there to like encourage people to be more like they are in person when they are online. I mean, obviously there are different ways that you want to handle things in conversations. You don't want to, give too much of yourself. But I think that like it's important for us to remember that people are still people, even when we are on, a device talking to each other. Just because they're not right in front of your face, they still are human beings, and we should treat each other with respect.
Yes, agreed. Totally agreed with that. Brian Stromer, Brian S., would you mind? And then De-Andrea will go to you.
Yeah, for me, I grew up, I should say, I have cerebral palsy. Basically, what that means is I always walk a little bit off balance. So dating on the apps have been a very interesting experience because from my pictures, you can't tell that I have a disability, but in person, you can. So it creates this weird kind of conundrum for me where I think I'm trying to figure out when and where do I disclose on these apps. And also I'm gay, so I think just that aspect of it adds to that. But I think what I've really noticed and really kind of, and I can go into this a little bit later, but is I've loved kind of just being very open about having a disability in my bio because it really takes off the pressure of having to find a way to disclose or potentially go on a date with someone who, regardless of what I do or who I am, is just not going to be interested in me. So that's been, I think, a really liberating journey that I've been on, but also just want to emphasize a journey that's not necessarily where I started when I started using these different apps.
Thank you, Brian. Your voice and experience is really valuable. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. De-Andrea, please.
Yeah, I have a lot of different thoughts. And really, amen, and not saying everything that everyone else has already said. I'm thinking about how easy it is to ghost online, where if someone were to approach you in person, you wouldn't necessarily just like not say anything and walk away. But online, there is this option to just not respond at all. And I think that sometimes having that distance can change the way in which we respond to people, as the other panelists have highlighted before. The term Twitter fingers comes to mind, but just how we can get like very nasty sometimes with our words, whereas in person we may not be as willing to be that rude. So those are just some thoughts that I have about that.
Thank you, De-Andrea. And all of you leaned into vulnerability, rejection, ghosting, right? All of those things. And then how we respond to it is different online than in person. This false sense of courage, this distance, this buffer that's there where we would probably, hopefully, react more respectfully in person. But those are really important things. And I think also, again, with this, when we look at the collective socialization of manhood, what often can show up with those interactions between a man and a woman, who's a man who's rejected and his hurt, is misogyny can come out through that too. Like, how dare you? Not in the same way that we might see with men who holler at a woman walking down the street and she not respond to him, and he's now reacting in this way like it's her fault, like there's something wrong with her, So those are really interesting points you all have brought up. Thank you for that. Please, people, keep adding to the chat as well, so you can be a part of this. And I'm going to go to another question. I'm going to start again with you, Rock, and then I want to go to a question for De-Andrea and the other panelists. Rock, what do you believe men should do or consider before downloading these apps to better support themselves, potential matches, and that rejection that is bound to happen at some point? Because, there's going to be a rejection. So is there anything in particular that you think should happen beforehand?
Yeah, I want to emphasize and underscore before, right? So 3 things popping up coming to mind. First thing, and I say this saying that I've tried these things. I'm not saying that this is going to work for everybody, but I invite you on this journey to try it. Put your phone down first. Check in with yourself. Ask yourself, what am I holding? What have I just been through? Are there some things that I have not responded to in my life? Did I just come out of a breakup? Did I just come out of a, whatever we want to call it, situationship, whatever? What are all the things in my life? Where am I emotionally, spiritually, mentally? What's going on? What are those things that I may be ignoring? Because all of those things can influence and inform how we show up, right? Going into this. And I've learned that a little bit of self-awareness goes a long way in whatever your goals and your intentions are going into this space. The second piece, really thinking about what's the experience of others on this app, right? What is the experience of other people that I want to interact with? Within the past year, I just started taking a tally and an account, whether it's from Hinge or Tinder, of how many women, when I click on their profile, when I'm scrolling, how much they are giving cautionary tales and warnings and saying, here are all the things that you will not do, right? You only got about 500 characters on Tinder, and you're using your 500 characters and even the prompts on the side to say, don't send me this picture, don't call me this, don't expect this, and this. And so for me, I had to begin to think about what has she been through, right? Up until this point, not just in life, but just on this particular app. What has she been through and how I may have contributed to some of that, right? Whether it's, in my interactions, whether it's, knowing, some of the guys and how they show up on that piece. But then also at the end of the day, it's like, all right, you just use your 500 characters to say all the don'ts. I don't know nothing about you, right? And it creates a really interesting dynamic where it's like, yeah, there's the physical attraction. Your picture's the biggest thing that shows up. It's the first thing. But it's like, man, like depending on your goals, it's like truly trying to get to know someone. We just missed that whole opportunity. So really beginning to lean into what is the experience of other folks on here. And the last piece, asking yourself, how am I being an active participant in my own success, whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish here, right? Am I effectively articulating? Am I effectively communicating whatever that connection is and I'm trying to achieve? I have one of my big brothers. This has been a man in my life since I was 18, since I stepped foot on college. He's my fraternity brother. He's always embraced me as a little brother, and I can go to him for anything. And y'all know that friend that tells you like it is, right? You careful when you go to them with certain stuff because they're gonna tell you just like it is. And we were checking in. He just moved up to DC. We just had a phone call to check in last month. And he was like, how's the love life going? And I was like, oh, I was being real. And I'm like, here's what I'm experiencing, Hinge, X, Y, and Z. I'm communicating, but I feel like people aren't, reading my profile and, miscommunication expectations. And he said, okay, read me your profile. I was like, okay, bet, because I'm thinking I've done some work. I'm communicating more directly than I ever have. I read him my profile and it was the longest awkward silence. And he just bust out laughing and like roasted me with love. And then he read me his profile, right? He's like, listen to mine. Recently divorced, devoted father of 3, actively in the life of my children. Here's what I'm specifically looking for. Here's what I'm not looking for, right? And I was like, okay, wow, right? And it really made me think about, am I truly being an active participant to the best of my ability in the goals, right? And what it is that I'm trying to do here. So those are 3 things I would ask folks to just really consider before you get too deep into the weeds, because you got to make your profile before you start scrolling. So.
I love that, Rock. And I also like thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability, and also the sensitivity that you have toward the other user that you're engaging with. Like that's really important. And then the baggage that we bring in, being aware of our baggage, our patterns, what things remind us of, I guess one word is triggered. I try to stay away from whatever word triggered, but something that reminds us of something else, right? Or someone else, and we're carrying that into it. So thank you for that. Before I go to the next question, though, I'm just going to ask the other panelists, is there anyone who wants to add anything to what Rock has said?
Yeah, I did want to add something just sparkling to everything, specifically the idea about being very descriptive in your profile about who you are, what you're looking for. In my profile, I put widowed from a beautiful marriage so that you know up front what it is, and then you can choose to engage with that if you want to. Also, I think it's really important to be honest with yourself about what you're looking for so that you can be honest with potential partners. If you know you're not looking for a relationship, don't play a game as though you are. And then you'll end up in situationships. And it's like, how did I get here? Because you weren't honest with yourself. So it's important that you're incredibly honest about what you're looking for. And without judgment, if you know you're just looking to date, just looking to hang out, that's perfectly okay, and there's no judgment with that. But I think it's important to be completely honest about what you're looking for and what types of experiences that you want, so that those who you do decide to engage with, everyone knows what's going on and everyone can enter with full consent.
Thank you, De-Andrea, and thank you for sharing. And also, I'll speak for myself, but also for the group that we're sorry for your loss. So thank you for sharing that with us, and sorry for your loss. Brian, anything before I move on?
One thing that I think really stood out to me was just this idea of checking in with yourself and kind of where you are at this place when you go on these apps, because it's a really strange phenomenon, right? That we can face so much acceptance or rejection in a matter of seconds when we're swiping. And I think making sure that like we're in a good place and that we can bring positivity to whatever the result is. I really thought that you had a great attitude with that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
I was going to piggyback on that as well. I think that's like such a huge piece of it. I also am like a huge advocate for therapy. And if you're like going through some stuff and you know you have like traumas that could potentially impact, your experiences on these apps or other people's experiences on these apps, I highly recommend getting a therapist. It's been a game changer for me.
Yes, thank you. That's always a good thing. A sounding board, therapist, whatever you want to call it. It's great to get outside of ourselves and share. And just like the information, it wasn't therapy that Rock's friend gave him, but it was good counsel. Um, so,
Absolutely.
so that's really important. And as men, we're not taught to share and to be vulnerable in that way. So I appreciate you bringing that up. De-Andrea, I'd like to ask you, can you share a little bit, explain your work and how it intersects with men, particularly how it relates to dating and relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my practice, Sankofa Sex Therapy, I work with individuals and those in all types of relationships. Often people come to me with something related to sexuality, whether that is inability to orgasm or challenges with erectile dysfunction or just relationship challenges. These are the things that people often come to see me for. And what I found is that a lot of times the sexuality will just be the tip of the iceberg, but often there's something else going on, whether it's relationship dissatisfaction or maybe needing to work through past trauma. And so I work with individuals of all genders. And although I don't have a lot of single men who uh, come into my practice specifically, I do work with men in relationships pretty frequently. And the idea of rejection can come up even if they're not actively dating, but it shows up when people are in relationships. It could be if there's a situation of, let's say, mismatched libido, where one partner is not wanting sex as much as the other, it may feel like rejection. And so that's something to work through. But yeah, this definitely intersects with my work, even though I don't have as many men who may be actively dating, the same themes and the same issues can still show up in the therapeutic space.
Thank you. You bring up a number of things, and it makes me think of how, as men, we're taught so much around relationships and the performance of sex, right? That's the relationship, and that if you're not, if you and performing is an important part of that, and that often means detaching, even not emotionally, but it's a more of a physical performance, a sexual performance, not necessarily the intimacy that the other partner might be looking for, and also that issue of rejection. And one of the things when we talked earlier about, the man box and when our boys experience these emotions and don't get to process those things, don't get to talk about them, and we just kind of bury them away, and then we grow up to be these men who experience rejection and really aren't sure of how to deal with that in a productive, positive way, and then it winds up showing up in many different ways that are not helpful for him or for others. So thank you for that, De-Andrea. Okay, so Brian O, if you could share, what key things do you want men to know and think about when swiping and matching?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to, a little bit of what we talked about earlier with remembering your headspace and where you're at for sure. I think also just as a man who also dates other men, like I can only really speak from that perspective because that's the only thing I've done on the online dating um world. But one of the things that I feel like has started to come up and be like a recurring theme is that when often men experience rejection in those spaces, we see a lot of just like lashing out. And that lashing out like will often take the form of like just like hurling insults. Like it'll be very interesting because you'll see like a message from someone where they're like really being flirty and like reaching out and like talking about how much they're attracted to or interested in this person, and then that person maybe wasn't able to respond back in a time frame that the first person thought, was acceptable. And so then they just start lashing out, and all those things that they just said about how attracted to them that they were are suddenly now insults that they're hurling about those same things. It very much, I think, has come up a lot from what I've seen in the form of like attacking like physical appearance and body type and all those kind of things. I think all of that is really attached to like this conversation around masculinity, and especially in the gay community, like how much we prop up having a particular kind of body image and how that impacts our level of masculinity and all of that. So I think that I would love for men to think about and remind themselves of why they're there. Like, why are you using these apps? What is your goal? What is it you're trying to attain? And also keep in mind that the people that you're interacting with have their own goals and their own things that they're trying to attain. And it's okay for people to not be interested in each other. And if you're experiencing, whether it's like direct rejection or just like not engaging because they're choosing not to, everyone has that right to do that. We all have the right to either engage or not engage with a person that we don't feel like is on our where we want to be, of someone that we want to be connected to. So yeah, I would love to see more of that happening. And also, just like I said earlier, remembering that like just because you're in a digital space, a virtual space, that person that you're interacting with is still a person, and they deserve to be respected and treated with care, just like they would be if they were right in front of you.
Yes, thank you. So the rejection, that processing of that rejection, or the inability to process it in a productive, positive way, shows up, no matter what the sexual expression may be as adults. Again, I think it goes back to how we are taught early on as boys in particular, as male identified youth in particular, that this is the way we don't deal with those emotions. Those emotions are shared, that someone other than male feels those things. We don't. We stuff them and we keep it moving. And it shows up as adults in these many different ways. So thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Brian S., if you don't mind, what role does your identity play in how you view masculinity as it relates to dating? You shared some of that. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I got a little bit into that question, but I mean, I think one thing I really want to hammer home is just how we have seen traditionally people with disabilities left out of dating entirely. So, um, that's through, I mean, and there's a lot of kind of scholarly work around how we don't view people with disabilities in a way where we would find them attractive, or we couldn't see ourselves dating someone with a disability, or even, I love that I commend you all for having an ASL interpreter at this event, because a lot of times when you think about things like speed dating or different events that are around disability, they're not designed to be accessible or inclusive. But what I've kind of found personally is that one thing that really was powerful for me on my journey is to remember what I bring to the table. So I have a mentor who said, never set your price too low because the world's not going to raise it. And I try to remember when I encounter things like ableism, the fact that I bring a lot to whatever relationship that I am going into, and to remind myself of that, especially before a first date or before I am kind of swiping. That's a really healthy kind of thing for me to just remind myself of. And then the other piece that I would say that I always try to kind of take away from a date or a conversation with someone is like, what did I learn from that? So not placing kind of the end result of having to be like, oh, great, I'm in a great relationship, or I met someone that I think is my forever partner, but really trying to look at like my past relationships of what did I learn from that and how did I grow from that, and seeing that as a success too. I mean, even a small thing that I do, I'm kind of relatively new to Boston. So when I go on a date, I really like to have the other person pick out a restaurant, because even if the date doesn't go well, I've found great restaurants that way, and that's a great win for me too. So I think trying to find the positivity in whatever situation you're in.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for sharing so much that I hadn't thought about. So thank you so much. And also, maybe if we put 10 tips for dating, the one about the restaurants we can put on there, so that at least you get a good experience with a restaurant and learn more about restaurants. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate that. I want to ask De-Andrea a question, and then after that, we have some questions from the chat that we're going to present to all of you. So De-Andrea, as you hear what these men have been sharing about their dating experiences, what's coming up for you as a leader in your field?
First, I am incredibly grateful to be in this space. I think that affinity spaces are important. And so to be in this space as someone who identifies as a woman, I'm appreciative of that. But also, it makes me think about how important it is to using that term again, Rock, dismantle some negative things that we have or negative ideas we have about the appropriate ways to express ourselves as it relates to our emotions, and how important it is to move in a different direction. Figuring out how we can learn how to embrace all sides of ourselves, all sides of the ways that we can experience emotions, and learning how to express them in healthy ways, especially as it relates to dating and dealing with rejection, and understanding that expressing your emotion is not an assault on your identity, however you identify. So those are some of the things that are coming up for me. I also spoke with some friends who are actively dating before this panel just to get some ideas about some of their own unique perspectives as it relates to dealing with rejection, and some thoughts that common thoughts that were given to me was this idea of how online dating helps you to not take it as personally for some, whereas in person, it can be a different situation. So those are some of the things that are coming up for me.
Thank you.
Hey,
And
can I chime in
yes,
on that?
go ahead. Yep.
De-Andrea, I appreciate you bringing that piece up. And this conversation about, Ted, you talked a little bit about that conditioning. De-Andrea talking about kind of that, not taking it as personal. I think that can be, it's all contextual, right? It's a yes and, right? Many truths at the same time. I think for some of us, that can be, I'll say, a little dangerous, right? And I'm thinking about my own experience, my relationship with the man box. Um, Oftentimes, with the work of a call to men, we're going into spaces and we're engaging well-intentioned men, and we talk about men being vulnerable, right? And what I've learned in my experience is that we're really talking about not men starting to be vulnerable, but the need to heal from all the times that you've tried to be vulnerable in your life and it didn't work out, right? And in our conditioning in that man box that Ted was talking about, we're that, it only takes one time, right? And after, we experience that, we don't give our emotions the space that they need, right? We don't feel maybe what we need to feel or unpack, and we'll carry stuff for years, right? And so sometimes, that online dating presence and that, it makes it a little bit easier. That may not always be the best thing, right? For some folks, like we need to feel that, right? Rejection is a common part of life. And I think that also like there's this radical revolution in redefining what dating is, right? I know for some of us, we're still asking the question, what is dating? What is rejection? What does that look like? I know me, I didn't even really understand what casual dating looked like, right? I was taught in a very Southern, very strict religious way, and I didn't really think about how all those things informed that, you court one person, right? I didn't understand what it meant to casual date until I reached out for help and talked to somebody and was open to that guidance. And so I think that also plays into this piece of kind of checking in with yourself of like, what do I understand dating to be? I just wanted to add on to that. I appreciate you saying that, De-Andrea.
Thank you, Rock. Thank you, De-Andrea. Before I shift gears to a few
Can I add
questions,
can
yes.
I add something? Yeah. Rock, you made me think of something that I often say, how sometimes people will compartmentalize for survival, where they'll put a part of themselves away to get through the moment. But the problem is that they never bring it back together. You know, they put their emotions on the side. And it's like, I'll get to it later, but later never comes. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that and brought that up, because it's important that we do, that we don't compartmentalize permanently, that we don't detach from that rejection, and that we don't become callous to it, but that we do give ourselves space to feel it and to experience it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we move on to questions, Brian, is there anything on your heart or mind that you want to share before we move on to questions?
Not for me at the moment, just wholeheartedly agree and loving that entire exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I'm on the same page.
Okay. Very good. All right. So Kenny, who's on our communications team, has shared with me some of the questions that were in the chat. So I'm just going to go to the first one here. And this is for anybody. How do you all feel that interpersonal interactions can be hindered or enhanced in the online dating space? How do you all feel that interpersonal interactions can be hindered or enhanced in the online dating space?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I said, from my experience, the hindrance piece, um, I feel the need to perform as we talk about this mask of masculinity, right? No matter how much work I've done, as soon as I get to the app, whether I'm building my profile, editing, having the conversation, I feel this need to over exaggerate, right? To really express, because I'm not in person, right? To really express my personality or over express my personality, and be super locked in, right? Or, be even parts of myself that I'm like, that's not me, right? I feel the need to like lean into a little bit more. And it gets to a point, it's gotten to a point where I had to ask myself, is who's about to go on this date with this person, right? Because I'm looking at the messages like, is that really me? I see me, but is that really me? And then ways in which it's been enhanced. I've had some really amazing interactions. One thing that I don't do is I don't talk about resume or anything, right? In the first interactions. I want to know, who are you outside of work, right? If we're talking about resumes, that's like a first date, second date kind of thing. But really being able to just let go and have some of the most amazing interactions and conversations. If y'all ever got into like an Uber and just had like an amazing conversation with the Uber driver, like, wow, that was beautiful. Or sitting at a table till 3 a.m. with one of your best friends, just letting loose with no expectations of, I have to be this, I have to be that. And there's that reciprocity, right? That's been amazing.
Rock, I'm going to lean into you a little bit more. I'm just curious. I know you're a member of a fraternity, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what advice would you give, or what would you share with fraternity brothers around online dating?
Yes. So one, I would say hold each other accountable. Within my fraternity, we love to say, protect women, protect Black women. The question has to be asked, who are we protecting them from, right? First and foremost, right? Many of us know that our brothers, folks that we're connected with, may not show up in a way in which we always want them to show up. But it's hard to have those types of conversations with these men that you love dearly, right? Because sometimes you don't want to see that, right? Or sometimes you don't want to acknowledge it. But I think one of the most powerful things that you all can do is really say, how are we living out our fraternal values, right? And then look at each other's profile, right? Like same way my big brother did me. Like, let me look at your profile, right? So I would say, that piece, and just making sure that there's congruence in who you say you are and who you project, onto these apps, right? Because that's what matters in the end.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And that issue of protection is really important. It comes up quite a bit because when we talk about men are protectors, to your point, well, protectors of what and from whom? Other men. Whatever the threat is generally from other men that women, girls, and even folks in the queer community want to be protected from is other men and cisgender heterosexual presenting men who are really causing these problems and that belief system that we talked about through the man box. And this is not an indictment on manhood. It's an invitation to men. It's not about calling men out. It's calling men in. We're all swimming in the same water. But there's things that are harming clearly, not only women, girls, and queer folk, but also men and boys. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So my next question, and I'll go to anyone here. Why do you think some people feel more comfortable online as opposed to in real life? You said, I guess we leaned into some of that, didn't we? Is there anything anybody wants to add to that before I move on to the next question? And that was, why do you think people are more comfortable online opposed to real life? Anything to add?
I mean, I think it's just that like if someone is right in front of you, right, and you are saying the things that like maybe you would say online and they're a bit more aggressive, those things, I think that their like body language, they're going to respond to like what you're saying. You're going to see it directly in front of you and be faced with the consequences of your actions in a much more visual and apparent and like in your face kind of way. And so when you don't have that and you're online and this person either hasn't responded to you or, has barely responded to you and you haven't built any kind of connection with them, even just in like an in-person initial meeting. I think people probably find it a lot easier to just kind of go all the way off. Like
Mhm.
just people will like just say the wildest things. It's mind-blowing. And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons they're a lot more comfortable is like the consequences of it are much more slim. You can even like say whatever awful thing you're going to say and then immediately block, or the second you feel like they've read it and you've gotten your point across, immediately block, and you never have to hear from or see them again. It's very low
Yeah.
consequence.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You've covered that, and we covered it earlier, but I did want to bring it up again because there's clearly folks in the chat were interested. So thank you for that answer, Brian. And
For
then
sure.
this is
Can
really,
I
yes,
add?
go ahead,
I
Andrea, please.
For me, when I decided to start dating again, I was widowed. And so I hadn't been dating for a long time. So the game didn't change. So for me, online dating was a good introduction for me to kind of learn how to do this dating thing again. And like I said, it worked out. But it was a good, for me, it was a good way for me to just dip my toe in the water. It's like, am I really ready for this? Am I okay with this?
Thank you, De-Andrea. So let me ask this question as well, folks. This is really for speaking to young people. The question is this: can you all speak to how young people of today are impacted by today's culture of online dating? How are young people of today impacted by today's culture of online dating? Any thoughts?
One thing that I see a lot is like, and I think Match Group has done a really good job on their apps of trying to address this, but it's so easy to get stuck in like these superficial conversations of like, hey, how are you? I'm good. How was your day? It's good. And I think it's been hard, I think, for a lot of young people to get to kind of deeper conversations that maybe if you were in person, you would have. So that's been one thing. And then I think one idea to kind of combat that I've really tried to take with me, and this is actually a best practice from like recruiting. So like on the corporate side, a lot of companies are moving towards this idea of like with resume reviews, how do we screen people in versus screening them out? And I think that's a really powerful concept to bring to online dating. So instead of looking for reasons that this won't work out, what are reasons that this will work out? And how do you take that approach? And that's something that I would like to see more young people do, because one of the really beautiful things about the app is you get to connect with people who are outside of maybe your community, whether that's geography or just the people you tend to surround yourself with. And I think that sometimes that can be scary, but it can also be a really great opportunity to meet new people and meet and think about things that you wouldn't have necessarily thought about. So to screen people in, I think is a really powerful tool.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Brian. We love anything that's inclusive, screening people in, calling people in, not calling people out, all of those things. So thank you for that. Any other thoughts on that before I ask the final bonus question?
Yeah, I think just really quickly, like one of the impacts that I think we're seeing a lot of research on Gen Z is that they are in a lot of cases shying away from using online dating and trying to find alternative ways to meet other people. And I think we see that probably less so in some communities than others. Specifically, like I think the queer community, it's a little bit harder for us in those natural sort of organic ways to find people. So we lean on the apps maybe a bit more. But Gen Z, I think, has, in a lot of ways tend to shy away from it. And so we've started to explore other ways to engage them and provide opportunities for them to meet people that kind of don't fit the same like box that a lot of dating apps are in. Exploring social avenues, ways to, have in-person events that can draw people to each other, find, create communities sort of for people within the app. So that's one way that like I think they've been impacted a lot is just kind of staying away from it altogether. And so we're trying to find ways to keep them engaged.
Thank you, Brian.
And Ted, if I could just add on really
Yes.
quickly, I know you're going to move to the next question. I think for us, millennial above, we have to acknowledge that what happens in the online space is real for them, right? Thinking about Gen Alpha and Gen Z, they spend much more of their time online than we did. I'm coming from the instant messenger, AOL, dial-up chat, piece of paper, do you like me or no, right? And we had to sneak and pass notes in between class, but you have, now remember I was up in Ithaca and doing some work with a group of high school students. And I was baffled that, the school gives them Google Chrome books and they spend most of their day online. So, it may not necessarily be a dating app, but as we think about that online space, we're still thinking about DMs. We're still thinking about, the whatever chat platform that they have Google Chats throughout the day to be in school. I have some mentees. I have one in particular. I think this was like in November. We were just talking about, dating, right? He's a high school senior, and he's like, I liked her picture, right? And I have to be gentle with them in that moment of like, okay, so like when you say you like the picture, what did you want to happen? So really acknowledging that, whatever is happening online for them is real. And I think we, as some of the older, more seasoned generations, just have to keep in mind that, it's not to tear down, it's how do we expand our toolkit to be able to meet them where they are and support them as they are engaging, right, in an online capacity. But also, one of the coolest things I think to Brian's point is that we know that young people are changing their mind about things all the time, right? And sometimes at a very quick rate. So it's a lot of opportunities in that.
So you had mentioned the recent generation, the young folks, and I have a question for you, Rock, around this generation. But I'm going to also, so I'm going to ask you that question, but I want to ask Brian, and De-Andrea to think about this, because I'll come right back to you. And if you all can give me an answer to this question, which is, what's one thing you'd like to leave with men before we leave today? If you can think about that. And then I'm going to ask Rock to answer this question, which was in the chat. How does the man box play a part in this new digital era of the dating compared to previous generations when technology wasn't as prevalent?
Yeah. So I would say the man box within itself, very sophisticated ways of still showing up because it's impacting the users, right? Whether it's in person, whether it's online, the users are still impacted by that man box specifically, right? So whether it's this, the teaching of dominance, right? And I have to dominate, I have to be in control of all situations, right? That still shows up and it can even be amplified, right? And even going to how we're building our online presence. And going back to what I talked about, that conditioning of I have to show up like this. I have to post this picture because it makes me look this way. It makes me feel this way. Or this is the message that I'm trying to convey, and never really stopping to think about, well, what am I trying to convey, right? How do I make, more emotional connections versus, the more physical and objectifying things. So I think the man box within itself is ingrained in the very essence of, online play. It can be, right? Because of the users themselves and who have built these things online. It can show up different ways, from posts to how we interact with each other to, what gets trending, what's popular, what's in, what's out. It's there. Like Ted, you said we're swimming in the waters. That's online too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rock. So I'm going to, I appreciate that. So I'll go to Brian O, then Brian S, and then De-Andrea, we're going to give you the last words on this. Brian O, would you answer this question, please? What's one thing you'd like to leave with men before we leave today?
Yeah, I would just like to leave with men that like please check in with yourself. I know we've like harped on it, a bit. It feels like almost like it's a little like overkill, but I think it's so critical for us to really be checking in with ourselves and understanding where we are and mentally and emotionally how we're feeling going into this. Be honest with yourself about the experiences that you've had, and when you're interacting with people, um, remember that they are people, and even if that person is not a person for you, or that person has decided that you aren't a person for them, um, that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to exist, that they don't deserve to be supported, that they don't deserve to be in that space, that they are allowed to take up space there just as you are. And let's try to respect and encourage and support each other rather than bring each other down.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you for your contribution today. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Brian S., please.
Yeah, one kind of golden rule that I try to apply when chatting online is like, would I say this to a person in person? And I think that's a really great question to ask yourself, especially when you're in doubt of like, oh, am I making this person feel uncomfortable or should I say this thing? And then the second piece that I would just add, and I've seen this kind of in the chat, is I have a rule where like if someone makes me feel uncomfortable, I just kind of will close that conversation and unmatch with them just because you don't know. There are elements of danger to dating online, and I think you just to trust your gut is really important, especially if you're on the younger side, and it's much better to play it safe than potentially risk something bad happening. So I would say also feel fine and empowered to leave the conversation if you're feeling like you are uncomfortable.
Thank you, Brian. De-Andrea, last
Yeah.
word.
I think it's important for everyone to understand that rejection is something that we will have to deal with. Let's figure out how we react to it, healthy ways that we can express it, again, not fragmenting ourselves to where we become so calloused that we don't even give ourselves space to experience the emotions that come with it, but also not allowing the fear of rejection to keep you from the opportunities of getting to know other people. So trying to find that balance.
Thank you, De-Andrea. Thank you for your amazing contribution. Thank you so much. And also for the work you do. Brian Stromer, for you as well. Thank you very much. And Brian, oh, thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation. It's been a real honor to spend this time with you all. I'm going to turn the mic over to our Chief Communications Officer, Kimia Motley, she has some information for you, and then for last words.
Yes. Hi, best friends. Thank you all for this wonderful conversation today. Thank you to our special guests, De-Andrea, Brian, Rock, and Ted, for joining and sharing with us today. And a special thanks to our partners at Match Group for partnering with us on this special topic. I have a few things I need to share with you. Number one, we have a virtual training institute coming up next month. If you're an advocate, community member, educator, corporate leader, or practicing aspiring ally, that should have named all of you now at this point, and you're committed to dismantling sexism and racism in your life, in your family, in your community or organization, then this institute is for you. You're going to see a link dropped in the chat. Go ahead and click on that and run, do not walk, to sign up for this institute. It's life-changing, I promise you. And then you can find us on all of social channels: Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at A Call to Men. We are also on TikTok as A Call to Men Official. Go over there, you'll see some cool videos of Tony and Ted dancing. You don't want to miss that. You'll find Tony on LinkedIn, and you'll see that link in the chat as well. And you can find Ted on Instagram. Now you can continue this conversation and many others in our Facebook group, in our Facebook community group, because this was a hot conversation, right? It needs to be continued. So you need to run, not walk. I've said that now twice. I hope you're taking note. Run, not walk, to join our Facebook community group. I know a lot of people don't like Facebook, might not be your jam, but you need to join it if you want to keep talking to us about that. So click that link down in the chat and join us, but you must answer all 3 questions or we're not going to let you in. Okay. So how can this conversation inspire change or action in you? I want you to think about that because that's one of the things we're going to be talking about over there in that Facebook group. So again, thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to kick it over to Danny to offer some last words to our group.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my goodness, y'all. This has been such a rich, just a rich conversation this afternoon. I want to thank all of our panelists for the ways that you all showed up and were just super transparent and vulnerable and just called us all in to think and stretch and grow and move a little bit differently. I also want to shout out everybody that was here and was leaning into that chat because the chat was moving. Y'all were connecting and being just as vulnerable and transparent with each other as our panelists were being. It was just an incredible gift. We had a bunch of folks over on Facebook joining us as well. Just a really incredible conversation today. There was so much that came out of our time together this afternoon that I know that this will not be the only time that we're leaning into conversations around dating and apps and technology and safety and accessibility and inclusivity and all of that. So lean into all of those links that are there in the chat. Stay connected with A Call to Men as well as our friends over there at Match Group so that we can keep this conversation going. All right. So it is 2 o'clock, right on time. Y'all know how we do here at A Call to Men. We like to get a little messy before we leave. So we're going to invite you all to unmute and just give a shout out, share some love, pour some joy into your bones today. We're really grateful for y'all joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to being with y'all together in the future. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, happy Valentine's Day.